Welcome to the Sankofa Ancestor Shrine, where every week we invite spiritual Black folk to reconnect with our ancestors as we journey through the crossroads. Please consider donating through patreon.com/Sankofa Shrine. Ancestors, please grant us patience with our family, friends, and situations that are beyond our control. Help us to find those things that we can control and to lean into them and find our strength in what we already know and the people we have around us, the situations and environments that we have. Help us to find where we can take root and still grow and blossom even in uncertainty and even amidst fear. Ancestors, please give us strength, protect our families, and allow us to continue to use wisdom to keep ourselves safe. Ashe. So to continue strengthening our lungs and continue to commit to our fire breathing practice, we're going to do 200 fire breaths right now. Actually, let's do 250. Let's try and push ourselves a little. If you get lightheaded, please stop. Just breathe normal, breathe deeply. This isn't about trying to make yourself faint or hurt yourself or competition. It's about building up your own lung strength and bringing oxygen to your mind to help you open up and be more receptive to the spiritual realm. So remember, when we breathe in, our stomach goes out. When we breathe out, our stomach goes in. And I like to put my hands right here on my stomach, my womb, so that I can notice and make sure I'm still doing it correctly. Let me see if I can find my little guy who helps keep the time. I just looked up this thing because my daughter came up to me and was like, "What is this?" She knew intuitively to do this with it, but I was like, "You know what? I've had this thing since I was a little kid. It's like sitting on one of my altars, and I do not know the name for it. And the name for it is guiro, apparently. It's a Cuban instrument, Latin American instrument, spelled Guiro. And when it's shaped like this, a lot of people call it a croaking frog. Because listen, it really sounds like I've literally done this a million times, and it never sounded like a croaking frog until I heard someone call this a croaking frog. Doesn't sound kind of like when you're in like a space where it's like kind of marshy and you hear the frogs outside? It's so funny. And this is not the stick it came with, if you'll notice. This is a stick I had to give it because I haven't had a stick for as long as I can remember too. I've had this little guy for as long as I can remember, but I've never had a stick. So anyways, this is typically what I use now to give a good little hit and keep our time. All right, let's start with 3 deep cleansing breaths. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I wanted our session today to be a little inspirational, but also to take wisdom from elders, those who have come before us, situations, but also be relaxing. So, in that mindset, I pulled out this book, which I haven't pulled out in a long time for this circle, for this gathering that we have weekly. This one is the Dead Emcee Scrolls, The Lost Teachings of Hip Hop by Saul Williams. I've talked about it before. We've read some poems from here, and we've discussed how the cadence of a lot of the poems in this book really match the cadence of the poetry found in the Book of the Dead. So when you're reading that book, I found when I was like 15 or 16, not this copy. I had to get myself a new copy when I got older. But this is one of my favorite books, you guys. I always have this book on me. But I read it and I like loved the poetry. I memorized the poems. I loved it so much that when I went on later on in life to read the Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Book of Bringing Forth Light by Day, or I forget what the original name of it is. Then I was able to read it a lot easier because I was so familiar with reading in that way, reading with that rhythm, should I say. So this is a book that I always highly recommend, especially if somebody is just trying to, indulge themselves in hip hop culture and poetry that means something to their daily life. It's highly symbolic. Always, I recommend this book. But yeah, so we've read Amethyst Rocks. We know that one. I stand on the corner of the block, slinging amethyst rocks, drinking 40s of Mother Earth's private nectar stock, dodging cops. I love that poem so much. But I went ahead and kind of did my bibliomancy thing to open up, and had ended up at 1994. So let's see if I can get there again. This beautiful passage. And I thought I would just read it to you because it just felt very relevant to a lot of what we are experiencing today. And I thought those words washing over us might provide a source of comfort, inspiration, and also intrigue. Just from having been in our house for a long time, it's nice to let the imagination soar beyond the walls that we're confined in. So in this passage, the author is kind of coming into themselves spiritually, and there's still the burdens of the outside world, but they are also building up tools within themselves to be able to use as they navigate through life. So this is page 113, if you happen to have a copy of the Dead Emcee Scrolls yourself. This is also part 2, 7 Mountains, journal excerpts from 1994 to 2001. These are perhaps some of the greatest moments of my life. I have been led or fallen into or happened upon a series of events, revelations, insights that have brought on some of the most intense feelings and experiences I have ever had. My overall search has been effortful, but these newly acquired insights, sensibilities, and thoughts have been effortless steps towards a greater state of awareness. These past few days, I have had several awkward or mystical occurrences, which were almost immediately confirmed as real or valid in a later moment. I've been led to adopt new beliefs, which seem to be a prerequisite to existing beyond the mirror. I'm very sure that there is much to be experienced beyond the mirrors of this physical realm. By beyond, I mean seeing past an image or through, within, or behind it, yet also seeing it as it is. And I mean is in the fullest sense. I am both blessed and burdened. Now that I know or am at the beginning of knowing, I must act or be eternally un. I was born today. Just now, just now, just now. Mixed emotion, contrived commotion, natural struggle, lead-filled sacks on non-burdened backs, finding the time to love in the midst of chaos. It birthed us, nourishes us. We live in it and for it. If we were free, we'd fight for the freedom to recreate it. Who's your master? Your dreams of disaster, nightmares of freedom, fantasies of fantasies, which you claim we have no time for because we're being choked? Well, what if time ceased to be time? How would that affect your tomorrows of freedom? Where would that leave us today? Would you then find the time to inhale and exhale and wear those hands around your neck as a necklace, accessorizing your newfound suit of mixed emotion, contrived commotion, infinity? How can I escape this cycle? Must I turn with the world in the direction it dictates? Am I the wind's slave? As instruments come to life with breath, the wind sends my high notes to indigo communions with Coltrane's favorite things. This is my body which is given for you. This is my blood which is shed for you. My love, like the wind, uncaged, blows time into timeless whirlpools, transfiguring fear and all of its subordinates, possession, fear, jealousy, into crumbling, dried leaves. My love is the wind's slave and thus is free. My love is the wind that is shaped as it passes through the lips of earthly vessels, becoming words of wisdom, songs of freedom, or simply hot air. My love is the wind's song. If it is up to me, I'll never die. If it is up to me, I'll die tomorrow, 1,000 times in an hour and live 7 minutes later. If it's up to me, the sun will never cease to shine and the moon will never cease to glow. And I'll dance a million tomorrows in the sun's rays of the moon waves and bathe in the yesterdays of days to come, ignoring all of my afterthoughts and preconceived notions. If it is up to me, it is up to me, and thus is my love untainted, eternal. The wind is the moon's imagination, wandering. It seeps through the cracks, explores the unknown, ripples the grass. My love is my soul's imagination. How do I love thee? Imagine. And will I now forget everything that I have read? Will I not now attempt to actualize the glimpses of a higher reality that I have experienced? What did Siddhartha teach me, and Azaro, and all of the other spirit children? And the insights? Have they not all laid the groundwork for this new deconstruction of self? I've learned the importance of stories, the importance of dreams, night and day, the need to look beyond mirrors, the flow of energy, the hindrances of control dramas, the inconsistencies of time, the inaction that self-consciousness leads to, the reality of the unreal, the universal source of energy, the beauty of all things, the unity of all things, that coincidences aren't, that love cannot be specified, kinda, the ineptitude of belief. Death only comes to those who believe in it. Life only comes when you're not reading, writing, or thinking about it. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. I could inhale your existence and exhale your dreams, and this room would be filled with things that only seem, your mind's on permanent rewind, trying to make it fast forward. Press record, listen. Beyond what you hear, preoccupation with time is preoccupation with fear. Looking at my Gucci, it's about that time. The tick-tocks of clocks padlock your mind. Capital centered on your left wrist. Your reality is twisted, unreal. Capital is not center. Time is undefined. As soon as you define it, it's a new time. But with unchanging minds, new times become the same times. Why blame time for bad times or sad times? Sometimes I forget time and exist on my own time, my own time. The concept exists in my own mind, and mind is eternal. The concept defeats time, so I climb. So I chose this segment because it felt empowering. It reminds us of the power we have within ourselves. It reminds us of the ways we look at things. It also reminds us, there's a part he says, and will I now forget everything that I've read? I like that part because we always take the time to learn things or hear them, but the act of actually applying it in our everyday life in remembering it when the time comes. Because I also, especially when things get hard for me, I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know. Somebody tell me. And the answer is obvious. The answer is so obvious. But I'm so busy being scared that, I don't move. And he says that too. He talks about that fear immobilizing you. So you don't take steps forward. So you don't take chances. So you don't reach out. So you don't continue pushing yourself. So I think that push forward coming from within, coming from you continuing to adhere to the practices, continuing to uplift your own spirituality, continuing to believe in your own spirituality and believe in what that means for you, believe in what that means for everybody around you. These things are what's inspiring, and also, what our journey is really about. It's not about, everybody else on the outside. It's not about appearances. It's about actually what you're putting in and doing and capable of. I also loved when he says that so many have laid the groundwork before us. So it's like there is not a lot of work that we have to do, right? So when I think of this, I think of when I put in my braid locks, right? I was able to go here on YouTube and find a whole bunch of people who had already tried out like micro locks, braid locks, all these different things. I was able to hear about their experiences, people with my hair type, people without my hair type, and be able to make a decision on what kind of smaller hairstyle I wanted. And it's kind of the same concept here, right? You don't have to do it all alone. You don't have to sit here and experiment and mess up continuously for weeks and years on end, because there are so many teachers that can help and guide you, especially if you're humble enough to look for it and ask for it, and at times pay for it, I guess, if you can afford it. This effort that you're putting forward, it can be used, it's like they say, work smart, not hard. So remembering that there are so many, and that, there is a wealth of information out there, and just because it's not exactly what you practice, it still can teach you something, right? You still can learn from it. You still can grow from it. So keeping that humbleness in mind while we're also empowering ourselves of, the possibilities of what we can absolutely do with our lives and with the information that we hear. Let me see, what was the other thing I enjoyed? I enjoyed this whole section. I enjoyed the whole book. Buy this whole book. Enjoy it. While you're on quarantine, go ahead and get yourself a copy of this book, because it's a wonderful one to have around the house and to just read and feel empowered, and, know somebody else was writing this type of stuff so long ago. I just recently found this book on, it was like neo-hoodoo poetry or something from the 80s. I need to read it to you all. I have it just sitting in the other room, and I had meant to read it, but then I found this passage and wanted to read this instead today. But it's so empowering. It's empowering when you find somebody in the 80s writing hoodoo poetry. It's empowering when you can look at a picture of a root worker from the late 1800s. It's such an empowering thing. So having those people there to push you forward, in a sense, that energy to push you forward is wonderful. So that's why I always enjoyed this story too, because it's like the 90s. Reading this as a kid, a teen in the 2000s was very empowering. It was very cool to see somebody with this different mindset. Meanwhile, I was going home to a Christian home every day. Any questions I asked were put through a Christian lens. And all indigenous, that's kind of how Christianity really does things. Everything is through the lens of Christianity. There's this belief that everybody's a lot of people are practicing. We all pray to the same God. There's a lot of weird excuses that really censor Christianity. There's not really a way to practice it without centering it in the mainstream use of the Christian religion. So it was very difficult. There was nobody I could ever talk to at home, or, at the time, YouTube wasn't really a thing like that. You can just go on and find somebody saying something spiritual that wasn't mainstream. So yeah, this book was such a lifesaver for me. And I hope those words gave you some kind of comfort and inspiration today. you know, let your love be like the wind and empower you and take you to new places. What is that? Is that one of my babies? Is that you, Tyra? Yeah, I knew it was you, just lurking. Okay, anyways. That was all I wanted to read from this today. And next week we'll either read some of the neo-hoodoo stuff or we'll read more of the mourning in the age of displacement. I know we talked a little bit about mourning like 3 or 4 weeks ago, but we didn't actually do the other one. There was like a recipe I had wanted to read you all. So let me wrap this up. May your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads. Thank you so much for joining. Please like and subscribe.